While the world focuses its attention on traditional maritime trade bottlenecks, such as the Strait of Malacca or the Suez Canal, a silent and icy transformation is redefining the center of gravity of global power at the top of the planet. The accelerated melting of the polar ice caps is not merely a climate phenomenon of catastrophic proportions, but the catalyst for a new geopolitical frontier where Russia has established a hegemony that challenges the established Western order. The Northern Sea Route, stretching over 5,600 kilometers along the Russian Arctic coast, emerges as the new shortcut that promises to reduce transit time between Europe and Asia by up to 40%. On the chessboard of commodities and logistics, time is the scarcest and most valuable resource, and Moscow holds the keys to this new corridor, transforming the Arctic from an impassable wasteland into a liquid highway of unprecedented strategic importance. The flashpoint for this paradigm shift occurred when global trade realized its extreme vulnerability to physical blockades and political instability in the southern hemisphere. When the cargo ship Ever Given obstructed the Suez Canal in 2021, the daily cost of nearly $10 billion in stalled goods served as the final argument for investors and strategists to turn their eyes north. For a ship departing from Shanghai bound for Rotterdam, the Northern Sea Route shortens the journey by approximately 8,000 kilometers compared to the traditional route via the Suez Canal. This difference doesn't just impact fuel consumption and carbon emissions, it alters the cost structure of the entire global supply chain, making the Arctic the ultimate logistics prize of the 21st century. However, this shortcut is not open access. It requires navigating waters that the Kremlin claims as internal jurisdiction, transforming every commercial transit into an act of recognition of Russian sovereignty over the roof of the world. Russian dominance over this route is no accident, but the result of a systematic investment in infrastructure that is decades ahead of its rival capacities. The heart of this strategy lies with Rosatom, the Russian state nuclear energy company that also manages the country's icebreaker fleet. While the United States operates only 2 aging heavy icebreakers, Russia possesses a fleet of dozens, including the new nuclear-powered Arktika-class giants, capable of continuously crushing ice 3 meters thick. Without these metallic scouts, commercial navigation in the Arctic remains a logistical suicide for most of the year. Thus, Russia does not control the route merely through legal decrees, but through physical and technological dependence. Any nation wishing to use the polar shortcut must, by technical necessity and for safety, request the escort of Russian icebreakers, paying transit fees that feed directly into Moscow's treasury. Parallel to civil infrastructure, the Kremlin has reactivated and modernized dozens of Soviet-era military bases along the Arctic coastline, creating what intelligence analysts call an access-exclusion zone. Airfields like Nogurskoye and bases equipped with Bastion coastal defense systems and S-400 missiles ensure that the Northern Sea Route is a protected fortress. For Russia, the Arctic is its strategic backyard and the guarantee of its economic survival in the face of Western sanctions. It is in this region that the vast natural gas reserves of the Yamal LNG project are found, where ice meets industrial fire. The flow of this energy to Asian markets without the need to pass through Western-controlled choke points like the Strait of Gibraltar or the Suez Canal grants Russia an energy resilience that shifts the balance of power in Eurasia. China, sensing the changing winds, has proclaimed itself a near-Arctic nation and formed a partnership of convenience with the Kremlin to develop what Beijing calls the Polar Silk Road. For the Chinese government, the Arctic represents an escape from the Malacca dilemma, the dangerous dependence on a strait that could be easily blocked by the United States Navy in the event of a conflict. By investing billions in Russian infrastructure projects and polar-class vessels, China is diversifying its export vectors and securing access to critical natural resources. This Sino-Russian alliance in the Arctic creates a power bloc that challenges the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. While Washington maintains that the Northern Sea Route is an international strait subject to free navigation, Moscow insists these are historic Russian waters, where traffic control is absolute. The dispute is not limited to transport, but extends to what lies beneath the seabed. The Lomonosov Ridge, an underwater mountain range crossing the center of the Arctic, is the focus of a legal and scientific battle. Russia claims this structure is a geological extension of its continental shelf, which would give it exclusive rights over vast deposits of oil, gas, and rare earth minerals located at the geographic North Pole. If this claim is accepted internationally or imposed by the fait accompli of military presence, Russian control over critical resources will reach a level of hegemony that could dictate global energy prices for decades to reach. Other coastal nations, such as Canada, Denmark, and Norway, watch the Russian militarization with growing alarm, but find themselves at a technical disadvantage to contest the Russian physical presence in deep frozen waters. Consequently, the Arctic has ceased to be a zone of scientific cooperation, to become the primary theater of Cold War 2.0. The choke point here is not a narrow canal, but the climate and technological conditions themselves. The ability to operate in extreme environments has been transformed into a metric of national power. For market analysts, the geopolitical risk of the route is balanced by economic efficiency. Shipping companies face the dilemma between the political risks of collaborating with Moscow and the astronomical profits generated by savings in time and fuel. However, as the ice recedes and navigability increases, the window of opportunity for total Russian control expands. Global logistics is being redrawn from the top down, and the command center of this process is located in the strategy offices in Moscow, where the Arctic is seen not as an environmental problem, but as the ultimate resource for projecting Russian influence over global trade. From this perspective, traditional financial and port centers in the Mediterranean and Southeast Asia begin to project scenarios where the relative relevance of their routes diminishes in favor of the northern corridor. The redistribution of the flow of goods implies a shift in global port infrastructure, with deep-water ports in Iceland and northern Norway gaining prominence as new transshipment hubs. The Russian strategy is long-term. They understand that those who control logistics control the economy. By monopolizing icebreaker technology and the search and rescue and monitoring infrastructure at the top of the world, the Kremlin establishes a geopolitical toll that all major economic players will be forced to pay. The Arctic is therefore the new chessboard where the maritime hegemony of the last 2 centuries, based on the control of warm oceans, is being challenged by the cold, pragmatic reality of dominance over the ice. Ultimately, the Northern Sea Route is the clearest example of how physical geography and strategic intelligence merge to create new realities of power. This is not just about a shipping route, but an umbilical cord that links Russia's security ambitions to China's need for growth, leaving the West in a reactive position of trying to make up for lost time. The race for the Arctic has already been won in the initial infrastructure phase, and now the world is witnessing the consolidation phase of this dominance. For the investor and the strategist, the lesson is clear. The world map is turning, and the new north of the global economy must pass through the frozen and heavily patrolled waters under Moscow's command. What was once an impassable barrier has become the most strategic asset on the planet, redefining the routes, risks, and rewards of international trade.